We can now bring in France 24's Annette Young, host of the 51%. Annette, great to see you. Since Mahsa Amini's death, there has been a change in Iran's leadership. We now have a reformer, Masoud Pezeshkian, who is the president. How much has really changed in the country when it comes to women and wearing the hijab or not wearing the hijab?
Certainly, despite the fact that he was voted in on a campaign of reform, the reality is for many women it's still very difficult. However, there are some incredibly brave women who've taken to social media not wearing a hijab, just wearing their hair naturally. And these are some photos that were captured by Associated Press. But the country's ultimate authority remains the 85-year-old Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who has said that unveiling is both religiously forbidden and politically forbidden. However, despite this defiance of these women doing what they can to protest against this enforcement of wearing the hijab, the UN has described an expansion of repressive measures and policies by Iran's authorities to punish women. The UN says Iranian security forces have basically escalated pre-existing sort of pattern of physical violence, including beating, kicking and slapping women and girls. They're also using drone surveillance as well, which is extraordinary, and monitoring women's activities very closely indeed. And those women that we just saw there and posting their images to social media certainly do it at high risk to themselves. In addition, there is a new hijab and chastity bill, which is still to be voted on. It's in its final stages of being approved. Observers say it's most likely will be passed, and the bill will issue harsher penalties for women who don't wear the hijab, including incredibly high financial fines, longer prison sentences, restrictions on work, and also bans on educational opportunities and travel. So it's not looking too good.
So much for a reformer, a president. But so where does this leave the future of that protest movement we saw?
It's still there, and if anything, observers will argue that Iran has irrevocably changed since the death of Mahsa Amini. In the last 2 years, however, the death penalty and criminal laws, as you've seen, have been used to terrorise Iranians, both men and women, and discourage them from protesting. And there is also a harsher pattern of sentencing, including sentencing women activists to death, including some belonging to the country's ethnic minorities, following their convictions or national security offences. Out of the country, attempts at finding harmony among the opposition, and keep in mind there are disparate groups of monarchists, anti-religious people, liberals and so on, is basically collapsed among acrimony. So there are some who still argue that the anger is still very present and that at this stage things at some point will have to move forward. But at the same time, you've got to remember that the religious authorities very much run the show on what one can wear and what cannot. And as far as they're concerned, they're not letting up at all.
They're not budging for now, but Annette, there is this international push to declare gender apartheid a crime. This, of course, in the aftermath of what we've seen in Iran and also Afghanistan. Let's not forget that story. Is there broad support for such a move?
Well, the thing is, the international community does have power. It can continue to issue a range of statements and platitudes, but they now have a tool which could be used against the Iranian and Afghan regimes, and that is this concept of implementing gender apartheid as an international crime. It started off in the UK, basically widening support among a range of Afghan and Iranian women living in exile who have now been backed by legal experts across the world. And they're looking for an expansion of the legal definition of apartheid under both international and national law to include severe forms of institutionalised gender-based discrimination with very harsh penalties attached, i.e. sanctions. Now, last month I spoke to Iranian human rights researcher Mahsa Amini and asked her what in fact was being done. Let's take a listen to what she told me.
Well, we're speaking at a great time right before the draft Convention on Crimes Against Humanity is about to be voted on at the UN. So in order for gender apartheid to be added to this, the opportunity for it to be added to this will be a game changer in codifying gender apartheid within international law, allowing Afghan women, Iranian women, and other victims of these systems of oppression to find justice within the international system, to put the appropriate pressure on governments like the Taliban to not allow them to act without impunity.
Thank you very much for that, Annette Young there.